Is this the last Fireside chat we're going to do before we go public?
Well, it's going to be a busy year for us if that's the case.
We're not close.
Hey, Zane, thank you, by the way. We just grew 20x in the last 5 minutes. You have a million restaurants. That's wonderful.
Yeah. We're about 45,000.
So let's work backwards for a second. 2017, Jake and I arrived at YXE in, I think it was probably May or June.
Saskatoon.
Besides my visit with you guys, what do you think the most memorable, my most memorable event in Saskatoon was during that period?
Visiting the store that sold both shoes and tires.
You got it. Let's not give Omar any bad ideas or good ideas, but if you're looking for inspiration, buddy, there is a Tractor store that sells beautiful men's dress shoes in the downtown core of Saskatoon. Perfect.
We've got everything. Yeah.
So we've had a long time together. It's been 6 years, 7 years, and when we first met you, you had 8 people. You were upstairs office in it was 3rd Avenue. Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And what are we at now? Like, how many employees are we?
It's 350-ish.
Are you the largest tech employer in Saskatoon?
We're not.
Getting there?
Top 3?
Okay,
Second,
top 3.
maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
And so the company's grown, obviously, and with a small population in Saskatoon, obviously, we sort of hit a peak, and you opened up another office in Toronto. We've done a lot of remote hiring. But can you just give us an idea of the distribution of the employees today?
Yeah, so about a third of us are in Saskatoon, a third are in Toronto, and a third are sort of scattered throughout the U.S.
Okay, it's actually been quite amazing to see the opening up of the office, the continue to scale and build that culture that means so much, I think, to the employees, at least the ones that I talk to all the time. It's always been foundational in the company. When we did first invest, there was, I don't know, maybe we were talking about a couple thousand restaurants, and an annual revenue, like a monthly revenue of, it was like $26. I look back at my notes. And we are up to close to $80 a month now, right? So it goes back to a lot of the stuff that Julie said, which, little plug, there's a reason that she's on the board of the company. But can you talk to us a little bit about the transition from becoming a shift scheduling company to really becoming much more of a workforce management company, what that's meant for your product set, and your ability to grow revenue within your customer base?
Yeah, so first off, we started as a core scheduling tool, and that was because it was addressed a core need in my family. My dad ran some quick service restaurants, and I had big ambitions to build like team management, an HR product, and kind of go end-to-end hiring, training, scheduling, paying, retaining. The reality, though, was, and I was reminded constantly by board members as we grew the business that just to kind of like cool your jets, Jordan. Like, you're not going to get there tomorrow. And that was always like difficult for me, and maybe for a lot of founders, where you just want to kind of build exactly what your vision is and you want to do it as fast as possible. We actually didn't get into the multi-product world until much later. Like, I would say it was probably like a good 5 years, give or take, before we started to actually going outside of our core and building additional products. So I would say there's a lot of like patience in that, but also I think if we were to do it too fast, we would have experienced a lot of people that potentially were confused about what they came to us for and then what we said we were, which is actually happening a little bit right now.
Okay.
In the sense that we added a lot of products, we kind of did a fun rebrand to our vision around team management, and seeing that our reputation and brand in the market is actually more around core scheduling, and how to kind of balance that has been, an interesting journey.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. So how did you discover that? Were you listening to calls? Were you getting feedback from your customers, feedback from your employees? Like, as a CEO of a company with close to 400 people, how do you, and you used to have your hands literally on the product, which really didn't help, by the way, with scaling the product. However, we did get to a place
pros
where
and cons.
So how do you get that info? Like, how are you working to get that information and then make decisions based on it?
I think through testing a few things. Like, there's like testing homepage and various things where people are seeing you and they're signing up, and are people, what are the sales reps saying? What are people saying they came to you for? And I think that it's a lot of listening to gong calls, a lot of like being in the trenches with people, and it's so interesting. The company's like 10 years old, and I thought we were like ready to continue to make that shift and kind of reposition ourselves as this all-in-one solution, and it's still like that's not how the million restaurant workers in the US of us. Like that's 1.12 or sorry, 1 out of 12 restaurant workers use 7 Shifts. So that brand in their mind and brand in the minds of operators, it needs to be thoughtful of how you kind of bridge into that messaging. And so we found out pretty quickly that we maybe jumped too far to that messaging instead of kind of the slower burn in.
And back to the core customer. When we look back at where we started, we were selling to mom and pop shops, and when we went back to our table and talked to the as an investment committee, we sort of said, like, where do we see multiple like vectors of growth in this company, and where is where are the trajectories going to come from? So we definitely saw the ability to upsell and get in product-led growth. That was a big part of your strategy. But we through the work that we were doing at Touch Bistro and touching on some smaller chains, we saw an opportunity to sell into chains as well in mid-sized restaurants. Can you talk about the move upscale with respect to that, and if you would have preferred to start with a more complicated product and move downscale, or you are happy with where you came from and where you're going to, and also touch on like some of the success that we're having in the mid-market right now.
Yeah, it's a super big topic that I will try to distill down very concisely, but we were SMB, single unit independents, and we still are, but we never said, hey, we're going to go like aggressively at the mid-market space. We were kind of pulled into the kind of multi-unit realm, and we went and did some work there, and I think the challenge you face is precisely like who has a company that's where you've kind of moved up market. Has anyone? Yeah, a few folks. There are inherent challenges and needs they're very different than where you are today, and I think that it's not a perfect science. I would say that we're actually actively even now pulling back to be more and more focused on our core than we ever have. And if this other segment is pulling us, it needs to be that they can use the product as is, and ensuring that you don't lose that simplicity, that those reasons why that made you special in the first place, because a different ICP is going to add different layers of complexity, and it's going to take your focus away, and it's also likely going to complicate the product.
Let's talk about, again, like ICP. Another area that I want to just touch on is the value of your partnerships and distribution partners, and how we're finding. I think, look, when I look at it today, we always talked about distribution partners 5 years ago, 6 years ago. You were the one laying the foundation. We couldn't quite figure it out. It might have been because we just didn't have enough groundswell, and the brand wasn't as prominent as it is now. 1 in 12 workers, that's like a big number, and in major markets. So I am curious, when you look at the partnerships we have today, and I was just looking at some numbers. US Foods is a major partner of ours. We did a couple hundred over the last month. We did like a couple hundred new customers through them. So how are we looking at US Foods and other channel partners? What lens do we look them through, and how do we help create a product that they want to help us co-sell?
I think it just goes back to, for us, our industry is restaurants, and anyone that's kind of worked with restaurants knows that it's a massive market, but it's a very local market at the same time. So I think deeply understanding the segment and how other partners build relationships with their restaurant customers and what their needs are, and how their customers think of their services. And the fact is, in your example with US Foods, they wanted to be a great consultant of technology. And so part of their initiative was capturing the best technology companies for these core segments, for inventory, for scheduling, for all these other areas, and being able to talk competently about them. So it was a massive initiative driven from the inside, but it was a deal that I personally had been involved with for years to try and make happen, because COVID slowed things down immensely. But and I think where's Samir? He's here somewhere, but in the back. And so we've got a great partnership with Touch Bistro, and again, those partnerships are all centered around the needs of those customers. What do they need? They needed that integration with Touch Bistro for them to be successful. So how can we continue to find opportunities like that we can help our mutual customers win.
So what I think everyone's hearing, which I've been seeing for the last 7 years, is an immense amount of focus. And it's been, we're running short on time here, but it has been truly a pleasure to sit by your side, watch the company grow as it has, efficiently, effectively, under great leadership, with a great and patient culture. And so thank you for inviting me to that shoe store 7 years ago and giving us the opportunity to invest in your seed round, Jordan. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alex.